Atari 2600. The Atari 2600 is one of the most important consoles in history, but its legacy includes something much darker: the 1983 video game crash. This was the first time the gaming industry nearly died. At first, the 2600 dominated the home market, defining what console gaming could be. But as Atari grew desperate to pump out more titles and more profits, quality control evaporated. Poorly made games flooded the market. Retailers were overwhelmed with unsold stock, and consumers simply stopped trusting video games altogether. The tipping point came with two games, Pac-Man and E.T. Pac-Man was rushed and poorly made, leaving players confused and disappointed. E.T. was created in a matter of weeks and became a disaster so big that Atari famously buried thousands of unsold cartridges in the desert. The 2600 wasn't just a console with bad games. It was a console that poisoned the entire industry. Sales crashed by more than 90%. Major companies went bankrupt, and many believed gaming as a whole had become a fad that was finished. It took years, and a new company from Japan named Nintendo, to bring gaming back from the brink. Atari Jaguar. The Atari Jaguar arrived at a time when Atari was already struggling, but the promise of a 64-bit powerhouse was supposed to save them. Instead, the Jaguar became one of gaming's biggest disasters and drove Atari out of the console business permanently. The problem began with the hardware itself. Atari marketed the Jaguar as a revolutionary system, but its architecture was so complex that developers hated working with it. Programming for the console was a nightmare. Many developers simply gave up or released rushed, low-quality titles. The system also lacked a strong library. Most of the games looked like slightly upgraded versions of 16-bit titles, which was a shock for a console advertised as far more advanced than Sega or Nintendo's offerings. Consumers noticed immediately. Meanwhile, Atari spent huge amounts of money trying to promote the Jaguar, draining what little financial stability they had left. When the PlayStation and Sega Saturn arrived, the Jaguar was instantly dead. Its failure didn't just harm Atari. It cemented the company's collapse as a major player, closing the book on one of gaming's founding giants. Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn didn't destroy the entire industry, but it nearly destroyed Sega. After the success of the Genesis, Sega believed they could dominate the next generation. Instead, the Saturn's launch became one of the most devastating self-inflicted wounds in gaming history. The first mistake was rushing the hardware to compete with Sony's upcoming PlayStation. The result was a console whose architecture was confusing and difficult for developers to work with. Third-party studios, especially Western developers, had no interest in struggling with a machine that seemed built backwards. The biggest disaster occurred during the launch announcement. Sega revealed the Saturn at E3 and then immediately announced that it was already available in stores. Retailers who hadn't been informed felt betrayed. Stores that didn't get launch units were furious. Developers who weren't finished with their games were blindsided, and the launch lineup became painfully weak. Meanwhile, Sony stepped on stage, revealed the PlayStation's lower price, and immediately destroyed any excitement surrounding the Saturn. Sales never recovered, financial losses piled up, and the Saturn's failure pushed Sega into a downward spiral that would eventually remove them from the console market entirely. Philips CDI. When Philips entered the gaming space with the CDI, they believed they were creating the future, a multimedia entertainment system capable of playing movies, interactive videos, music, and games. But the CDI's launch exposed everything wrong with the early 90s obsession with interactive media. The console was extremely expensive, poorly marketed, and confused consumers. Was it a console, a movie player, an educational device? Even Philips couldn't decide. The CDI's greatest damage came not from its sales, which were terrible, but from its attempt to define multimedia gaming. Philips secured temporary rights to create Nintendo-licensed games, resulting in infamously bad titles featuring Mario and Zelda. These games were such disasters that they nearly harmed the reputation of those franchises permanently. Industry analysts at the time saw the CDI as proof that interactive gaming was a dead-end technology, causing investors to lose faith in multimedia platforms. The failure of the CDI helped kill investor excitement around new formats and slowed the growth of CD-based gaming. Nintendo Virtual Boy. Few consoles in history are as infamous as the Virtual Boy. Nintendo themselves have called it a mistake. The system attempted to bring 3D gaming to the world in a way no one was prepared for. Instead of exciting players, it gave them headaches, neck pain, and eye strain. The console wasn't truly portable, despite being marketed as such, and the red monochrome graphics felt unsettling and uncomfortable to look at for extended periods. The Virtual Boy launched with little software, limited marketing, and even less public understanding of what it was supposed to be. Sales in Japan were so bad that Nintendo discontinued the console within a year. The Virtual Boy damaged Nintendo's reputation, making consumers question whether the company understood the direction of the industry. Some analysts believed Nintendo was losing touch and feared that companies like Sony were about to make them irrelevant. The failure of the Virtual Boy didn't destroy the industry, but it shook confidence in Nintendo and nearly derailed their momentum at a crucial time. 3DO Interactive Multiplayer. The 3DO was envisioned as a new kind of console platform. Not a device made by one company, but a standard that multiple manufacturers could license. In theory, it was the future. In reality, it was a disaster that nearly bankrupted anyone involved. The first problem was the price. The 3DO launched at a cost far higher than the competition. Because the 3DO was a platform rather than a single console, companies like Panasonic and Gold Star produced different versions with different issues. Some had overheating problems, others had poor build quality. This confused buyers and killed brand trust. The 3DO's failure helped convince the industry that licensing-based console ecosystems were doomed, shaping the future around more traditional hardware. Had the 3DO gained traction, the industry might have fractured into incompatible hardware standards. Gizmondo. The Gizmondo is one of the most bizarre and destructive consoles ever launched. It was supposed to revolutionize handheld gaming. Instead, it became a corporate disaster tied to fraud, criminal activity, and one of the biggest financial catastrophes in gaming history. Things took an even darker turn when investigations revealed that key members of Gizmondo's leadership were involved in criminal organizations, shady business deals, and financial scams. The company collapsed almost overnight, leaving investors, employees, and retailers with massive losses. Analysts feared that the scandal would scare companies away from innovative handheld concepts or cause tighter regulations that might harm the industry. The Gizmondo didn't just fail, it became a symbol of how corruption and hype can rot a company from the inside out. Ouya. The Ouya began as one of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns ever, promising a cheap open-source console that focused on indie games. Thousands of people backed the project, and excitement grew rapidly. But when the Ouya actually launched, it became clear that the hardware was unfinished, the controller was unreliable, and the software library lacked engaging games. The Ouya's failure caused widespread fear among investors supporting new hardware projects. Crowdfunding for gaming hardware took a major hit, as consumers realized many ambitious ideas could not deliver on their promises. Several indie developers who invested time and money into Ouya exclusives suffered major financial losses. And that wraps up every console that nearly destroyed the entire gaming industry. If you enjoyed this deep dive into gaming history, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss more videos just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.